Good morning. My name is Tyler Carter, and I want to share a testimony with you that is for the JJM crew that we are so thankful to be able to spend time with you guys. And a lot of my background, a lot of my history was basically being wrapped up in detention whenever I was growing up. And so it kind of worked out like this. When I was born back in 1979, it wasn't until I was 8 months old that basically my family got broken up. And my dad went off. I didn't really see him but a handful of times from 8 months old until I was about 12. And in those first 12 years, the times I can remember him coming back to my house, I mean, I was just a little guy, 4 or 5 years old, and I was sitting there waiting on him and just thinking, man, I get to go spend some time with my dad today. And he'd come to the house and he would just be lit up drunk. And man, there'd be, I can just remember times when I would just be looking outside the doors of my room, and every word you can think of would be screaming from the top of the stairs down to the bottom of the stairs where my dad was at, my mom was upstairs, and they'd be throwing things and windows would be breaking. And I remember just peeking out those doors thinking, why does it have to be like this? What's wrong with me? And times that, like when my dad would actually pick me up and I'd be able to go with him, which was just a few times. I can remember just sitting him getting hammered in the back of his apartment, and me sitting there just watching him and his buddies just get lit up. And that was normal for me. I didn't know that there was anything about that was different than normal. And so as I started getting up into late part of elementary school, early part of middle school, I started getting in a lot of trouble. I mean, even getting brought home by the cops for vandalism and egging people and just doing crazy stuff. And I'm sure some of you guys know what I'm talking about. And about that point in time, my mom was like, I can't handle you anymore. I was probably 10 years old, 11 years old. And my dad decided to actually kind of get his life put together. And so he had married a gal, and she had a daughter. And so I said, I want to go live with my dad. So I moved up and packed up to Colorado, and my dad took me with him and his new wife. We went to Colorado, and things seemed to be really good for a while. My dad and I got to spend time together, and I felt like that was a great thing. But my dad still never really stopped his drinking, and that really caused some major problems in our family. And one night, he got so blackout drunk that basically he came and just destroyed everything in our home. And that was a night that I'll never forget in my life, because we barricaded ourselves inside of a room, and this time before cell phones. He's trying to bang in and get inside the door, and he couldn't get inside the door, and we couldn't get to the phone to call the police. And anyhow, it was just a really scary moment. But my mom back home in Oklahoma, which is where I was from, she didn't want me to come back either. And so based on that situation, she finally relented and allowed me to come back to live with her. And I wasn't there for 6 months, and then she shipped me off to Oregon to go live with a family member because I was getting in trouble again. And they couldn't handle me, and they shipped me back to Oklahoma. And you guys kind of know how this goes. I just kept getting passed around. And I remember, man, when I started smoking a little bit of weed with my friends, I just sat there and I was like, man, I have kind of found what takes away the pain of my life. And started doing some acid. And I remember the first time I was about 17 years old, and I tried meth, and I remember thinking in that moment, because of the way that it made me feel, I don't ever want to not feel like this again. And so from the time I was about 16 years old until I was 26, I regularly was a needle junkie, about whether it was heroin or whether it was methamphetamines, or whether it was shooting cocaine, whether it was the dope deal. I mean, I was always staying lit up. And man, my life got to the point where I was in and out of jail and in and out of jail, and I had a daughter, and I wasn't being a father to my daughter, and things were just really, really bad. I had gone in and out of rehab multiple times, 4 or 5 times, truthfully, not a couple, 4 or 5 times. And man, in the middle of the last time of basically going deep down into addiction, I just realized that God was calling out to me in ways that I didn't even know it was God. He called me to start being a father to my daughter, but man, I was so wrapped up into my addiction, I had no idea how. And anyways, I decided to, because of all the crap that was going on in my life, and I was facing federal felonies and stuff like that, I decided, like, I got to give this one more shot at trying to get clean. And that was what it was. It wasn't God. It was about trying to get clean because my life was really messed up. I was facing federal felonies on conspiracy of counterfeit currency and all sorts of different things. And I decided to enter into a discipleship for people that had life-controlling issues, drugs, alcohol, pornography, sexual addictions, depression. And it was like straight up 18 months. It was being locked away for 18 months. And I decided, because my life and my daughter was more important, I said, I'm going to go because I want to try to be a better father to my kid. And man, when I entered into that discipleship, rehabilitation, there was something straight up different about that place, and it was Teen Challenge, and people came to me and they started telling me that basically that God had a purpose for my life. That was like 12 years ago, and that the reason I was making the decisions of pumping my body full of drugs for 10 years was because of some of the things I had to go through when I was a kid. Some of that tough stuff, like being passed around and abused, that I was just trying to kill my pain. And I listened to them. They said, cry out to God. So I started crying out to God, saying, God, you can do something in my life. I'll give you a chance, but you got to show me that you're real. And man, he started changing me from the inside. He started taking away some of that hurt that was there and showing me the hurt that was there. And he started opening my eyes to see that Jesus Christ is real and that he wanted to give me a purpose and a future. He wanted to give me hope for my future instead of continuing to slam drugs in my arm and to run the streets and to be a deadbeat dad. And I started believing him. And so I went through that rehabilitation. It was like 20 months. I was longer than most people. And this is what happened. Because I committed myself to the Lord and began to trust him and give my life over to him. You guys wouldn't believe it. But man, when I got out, God blessed my life. I knew nothing about other than being a carpenter and a drug addict for over 10 years. And God began to give me opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And man, my life, not on because of me, but because of Christ, started bringing success on my life. Man, I began to run organizations in Omaha because of what he was doing, not because of me. And now 12 years later, I get the opportunity to talk to guys like you, girls like you, and say, there is more than just meets the eye with Jesus Christ. You know what? A lot of people probably just, pass it off. It ain't no big deal. But let me tell you something. He will change your life, and he will create success upon stepping stones of success in your life if you turn your life over to him. I oversee all of the pastors and all the ministry for Youth for Christ, Campus Life, JJM here in Lincoln, but it wasn't because I did anything on my own. It was because I one time, 12 years ago, I said, I cannot do this no more. I just can't do it. I can't live like this. I know that there's something better in life than running the streets and pumping my body full of drugs. And so I just reached out to God. I said, God, if you are real, I said, I will just give myself to you, but you're going to have to prove it to me. And I can tell you, I do not, for 1 minute of any time in the last 12 years of my life, ever regret turning my life over to Christ, because He has changed me from the inside. He's changed those hurts. He's changed those wounds. And I just tell you guys today that there's some scripture in Revelation 11:12. It says, 12:11, Revelation 12:11 says, they overcame Him by the blood of the Lamb and the power of the testimony. Today I'm sharing a testimony with you about how I overcame all of those wounds and all of those hurts by the enemy. That's Satan. You're going to hear about him, but I overcame those because it was Christ that helped me to overcome those. And He's there to be able to help you too. All you need to do is reach out and ask somebody to be able to explain more to you. So I hope that this testimony of how Christ has helped me to overcome great addictions in my life, great wounds and pain in my life, maybe can help you too. All right.